Hey everybody, this is Jason Creel, and today I want to talk to you about lawn care pricing, specifically some of the mistakes that I think people make when they're pricing lawn care. Hopefully this will be helpful to you. I've got 7 mistakes that I see people make when they're pricing their lawn care service. So let's get started with those right now. Okay, these are in no particular order, but let's start. Number 1, first mistake people make when they're pricing their lawn care service is just, I'm gonna call it guessing. They do no market research. They just look at it and they just throw out a number that just sounds right at the time to them with no research whatsoever. This is not a good practice for obvious reasons, I would think, but you know, it's hard in just guessing to be right on anything. But when you're talking about your business and trying to make profit, just putting out a number, you may be way too low, you may be way too high. In spite of that, there are a lot of people that's basically what they do, so I thought it was worth mentioning. All right, the second big mistake I want to point out is people that go in and go low with their prices. A lot of times these are people that are new in the industry and they think, I just got to get some work. And I feel like I remember doing this when I started my first lawn business. You just need work to do, and so you think, I'm gonna price it low because I got to get the customers. Well, there's some serious problems with this. Mostly the problem is you don't make enough money, okay? People, and I think sometimes you hear Keith Kalfas talk about this whole employee mindset, and I think sometimes you think, well, if I was making $20 at this job and now I can do lawn care and make $30 an hour, but you don't understand all the overhead and expenses, even if you're working by yourself. But when you grow and begin hiring people, well, then your expenses become all the more. So you can't just look at it as some hourly rate. Well, I made $30 an hour or $40 an hour or $50 an hour, whatever. It's understanding the true cost of operating a business and maintenance on your equipment and your truck, and being able to pay for all things, maybe like your health care, if that's something you got to pay for now that maybe was provided for you in a previous job, retirement, things like that you need to be thinking toward the future. So just, even besides that, when you price your prices low, you tend to attract people who are looking for low prices, and they're not really the best customers. Now, obviously, most people want to pay less instead of more, but there's certain people out there that want just the lowest price, and they'll cancel you for you know, much of anything, and they're not ones that normally stick with you long term. So to me, that's even, well, I wouldn't say a bigger issue. Not making enough money is probably the biggest issue, but also the type of customer is going to probably be more of a headache, and that's a real problem as well. Okay, thirdly is thinking I'm gonna go too high on my prices. You think, you know what, I'm gonna just focus on quality. I'm not gonna be like the low ballers. I'm just going quality on my service, and I'm gonna charge for it. Well, the problem with that is that especially if you're just starting out and you don't have a reputation, you may have a hard time landing customers if you're just going to charge a premium price. So I'm not saying that if you can get that, great, but you may want to start developing your portfolio, do a lot of before and after pictures, start building up testimonials, things like that, so that you can justify your high price. Because yes, there is a certain percentage of the population that'll pay top dollar, but it's not a large percentage. Most people want to pay a reasonable price. They're not necessarily looking for the cheapest person, but most people are not wanting to pay the highest dollar. Now, like I said, there are those out there, but they can also be very much expecting near perfect services too. So you may be targeting a very limited percentage of people, and it may be hard to get established if you just think, I'm going to charge higher, because, you know, why wouldn't I charge higher? You know, because think about this. You look at pizza chains. You might have one that charges $5 for pizzas, and you think, well, they're just going cheap. Well, if they're making money and use cheap ingredients, there's a market for that. You might have one that charges $20 for a pizza, and you think, why would anybody pay $20 for pizza? I can go get another one for $5, or I can get them for $10 or $12. You know, why would I pay $20? Well, there's a market for $20 pizza. I'm sure there's a market for $50 pizzas, but it's a small market. So if you think you can just charge a premium price, you better make sure that the market in your area is a demand for that, and maybe there is if you're in a higher income area, and make sure that you can break into that market, because I guarantee you, if there's people paying top dollar, there's some other people that want them as their customer as well. The fourth thing I want to mention is just charging your prices based on what everybody else is charging. You say, well, people on this neighborhood, it seems like everybody's charging $50, so I'm just going to charge $50. And I've heard people say this before, and I think it's smart. I think you want to have some idea of what everybody else is charging, but you can't base it just on that, because the problem is it may not be profitable for you. You think about why certain stores can charge less than other stores. They have a competitive advantage. So you hear about maybe with Walmart, because of their size, they're able to really get you know, some deals on their front end, so they can sell it cheaper to you, the consumer. Well, or think about Amazon. I think what they've done, you know, recently with their own shipping trucks now, and cutting out paying FedEx or whoever they pay to ship your packages, and maybe that leads them to a competitive advantage. So do you have competitive advantages with your business? Are you able to do something that allows you to be profitable at a certain rate? Or maybe you're at a competitive disadvantage and you're going to have to charge a little bit more to still be profitable, because you don't want to charge the same thing everybody else is charging. And that's probably a bad example, because not everybody charges the same, but let's say you want to charge kind of the average going rate, if that's not profitable for you. So you may have to structure your business a little bit different, or maybe you have some competitive advantages where you could maybe even charge a little less, or charge that rate and be more profitable than somebody else's charge. So don't just think, I'm just going to find out whatever else charge, I'll just charge the same thing, because that seems to be the going rate. Now, the fifth thing I want to mention is kind of the opposite of that. I don't want to contradict myself, but is not considering what other people are charging. So let's say the going rate is $50 in a particular neighborhood, and you say, well, I'm going to charge 70 because look at me. I can charge 70 because look how great I am. And I got a truck and a lawnmower and a string trimmer, and I'll blow the driveway off, so I'm going to charge 70. Well, guess what? A lot of people do great quality work. You're probably not the only one, and to not even take consideration into what charge, you say, hey, I got a $70,000 truck and I got three $15,000 lawnmowers on my truck, on my trailer, so I've got to charge 70 to be profitable. Well, if you realize that other people are profitable at 50 and they do great work, it may be hard for you to get 70 for that yard. I'm just throwing out random numbers. The numbers don't mean anything. Just you can go up or down with those as you like. But just because you have tons of overhead because you made some bad business decisions doesn't mean you can necessarily get somebody to pay you more. You need to think, how can I cut my overhead and how can I be profitable, and strategically plan your business out. And don't just think I'm just going to charge whatever I want and because people are going to pay. It's not necessarily true. If there's other people out there, competitors do play a role in being successful in business. The sixth pricing mistake I want to mention is pricing only based on the size of the lawn. I feel like I did this a lot, but let's say you got a 5,000 square foot lawn and you say, okay, I'm going to charge, you know, $50. I like using that as a round number. Well, that makes sense, and that may be a good base price, but I think you got to factor in some other things, like where is this yard located, right? Is it out of the way? If so, I may need to charge more for it, or I may need to try to get some other customers in that area to make it worth my while to drive over there. Or is it a yard that has a tiny backyard, you know, a gate going to the backyard where I'm gonna have to use a push mower? They require bagging, or they only want it cut every other week, or is it on the side of a slope, or does it have tons of landscaping in the yard? It's so a pain. It's gonna require a lot of trimming, or a big circle driveway that's gonna take a lot of edging, or, you know, is there just different things, factors other than just the amount of grass it's gonna take, and even not the amount of grass, but just how long it's going to take. You know, if this is going to take me 45 minutes, so I charge this rate. Well, what if it takes longer to drive to get there, or just, you know, some other factors? So I think, yes, the size of the lawn is important. How long it's going to take you is very important, but it's not the only factor. You got to consider some other things. And the seventh pricing mistake I want to mention is similar to that, but it's sort of the opposite, and that's not giving discounts to people in certain situations. And I think you got to be careful with this, because I've kind of backed off of giving first service free or first service half off. I don't find that really increases my rate of return in some situation. Now if you're doing some mass marketing campaign, then maybe that can get the phone ringing. Obviously people do that, I'm sure it has some relevance, but a lot of times it just doesn't matter. I'm not looking for somebody who's wanting a deal on the first time. I'm looking for somebody who wants quality service for years to come. But when it talks about not giving discounts to people, I think in certain situations, when you think about what costs you money as a business, and drive time is part of that, but if you've got two next door neighbors, then it makes sense for you to give them a slight discount, that you would get 2 yards instead of 1 yard. Now what are you thinking? Well, what if I got both yards at full price? Wouldn't that be better than both yards at a discount? Yes, I agree with you, but I think there comes a time where if you build up such a route density in one neighborhood, and that you've got 20 yards in this neighborhood, and maybe you can do them slightly cheaper than other people because you've got 20 in that neighborhood, it makes it very difficult for people to cancel on you, because if you're there, you're doing a great job, their neighbors are using it, and you're able to do it at a really competitive price because it's cutting down on your overhead and you're still being very profitable, then it makes sense. I just remember mowing lawns, and we had these small yards and about 7 or 8 on one street, and we'd stop the mower and go cut them all at one time, and it was very profitable, and they were some of the cheapest priced properties that I had on my route, but some of the least overhead involved, because we could do 7 without moving the truck or whatever it was. So I think there's some times where it makes sense to give a discount. Again, personally, I don't like doing the upfront discounts on a first time cut or whatever. I do prepaid discounts. If somebody wants to pay for the year, I give a 5% discount for that. So anyway, just think through some of these things, but there are mistakes to be made with pricing. And the pricing is so important, because if you find yourself, and you need to evaluate yard by yard at least once a year, but just go through there and you see, you know what, this yard is not worth what I'm charging. Now at the end of the year, you need to go up on them, or you need to cancel them, or you need to do something, but don't just keep working on an unprofitable yard. It makes absolutely no sense to keep working and not make any money. So let's think smarter about that. Hope these things have been helpful for you. And my name's Jason Creel. You can check out some resources available at lawncarelife.com, especially if you're in the lawn care business. I appreciate you watching the video. If you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel. I'll talk to you later. Bye.